Hey, and welcome to Matt and Jess TV. I am Matt Roast,
And I'm Jessica Bun Bun.
and this is our Earth Abides episode 6 reaction and review.
Mhm.
This is the finale. I think we can say with even more confidence than usual, this is the series finale. You ain't jumping 50 years after the events of the end of the world for any other reason.
Which is okay. I mean, they said that this was going to be a limited series. It feels like a
Yeah.
limited series. It feels like they gave us a really beautiful end to just what was a really beautiful show. I know that this show wasn't everybody's bag, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of us out there that really did enjoy this. It feels like such a refreshing show after seeing, especially us. I
Mhm.
mean, we cover a lot of thrillers and horror and all kinds of stuff here at the channel. So to have a show that was more about the human spirit and being able to rebuild and that there's hope for the future and things are going to be okay. It was really nice.
Yeah, it's funny. Ever since I finished this finale, I've been trying to rack my brain and sort of think of, is there any other show that we've covered or even any other show that I've watched over the course of my life that kind of feels like this one feels, where a lot of it is just kind of, it's both high stakes but also focused on this really small intimate group of people at the same time, and it feels like it's just solely focused on them and what they're able to do. And I can't think of another show where I've kind of come out of it feeling the same way that I do with this, because it is very pensive and it is sort of just this exercise and watching and observing these people. It's sort of, you're witnessing a chapter of their lives, and it's not all about constant conflict, even though that existed as well.
No, it's about rebuilding better and like actually working in harmony with Earth. That it's not about rebuilding the past and bringing all that back. It's like, okay, the past didn't work. We ended up here. And now we're going to rebuild into a different and better future where we're working in harmony with the Earth. It's a really nice idea, and it was satisfying to me.
Yeah, I will just say this. This is absolutely not the finale I thought we were going to get. If you watched the
No.
reaction and review we did for episodes 4 and 5, I was convinced that everybody was going to die, that Ish was going to be the last person standing, and that this was going to be some really sad, depressing ending where he was just going to be wandering around by himself.
I thought he was still under snake bite venom from the first episode. He was going to wake up and be like, oh, everything is still the same. What a kooky dream.
What? Okay, we have taken some massive L's here, but you know what? I've never been so happy to take an L. I like this ending way better than what it was I was thinking about.
No, I loved it. But before we get too much into this finale, be sure to hit that subscribe button, because even though Earth Abides is over, we do cover other MGM Plus shows here like From. But right now we are covering Dexter Original Sin,
Yes.
which has been so much fun to cover. We have a bunch of new stuff coming up in the new year as well, like the Mayfair Witches. It's going to be
Yes.
really fun. Severance. There's all kinds of great stuff here at the channel, and it really helps support us as well. So thank you so much to everyone who has hit that subscribe button to stay with us.
And speaking of new shows, if you join our Patreon, we are covering 2 new Patreon exclusive shows over there in video form. We have The Pit, which is premiering next month on Max.
Yep.
It is a medical drama with Noah Wiley that is sort of in the vein of 24. So it's ER meets 24. Like,
Yep.
what can go wrong there?
Yeah.
And then Prime Target on Apple TV Plus, which is a new mystery thriller, which, as you guys probably know by now, that is just totally one of the things that we really, really love. So thank you so much for joining our Patreon. That link is in the description.
Okay, let's talk about Heather and sort
Okay.
of that connection that all came around. So we all felt that tension when Ish was maybe gonna let the door watcher with the whole Charlie situation back into the community, and eventually he was just like, no, you just have to go, and you just go, and whatever's gonna be your life is gonna be your life. And that decision ended up coming back around, where we saw Heather and Rafe were out in the world and they met up with him, and he ends up killing Rafe. And she tries to get back. She drives back. The truck breaks down. She ends up having to walk for weeks to get back. And we saw this moment where one of the guys there, I think his name was Corey, was like, if I know this secret, should I tell somebody? And, Molly's just like, listen, if this secret is just going to hurt everybody and it's not actually going to build towards something, it's not actually helpful, then yeah, eat your secret. It's not something that's going to affect everybody in a more positive way moving forward. It's not going to help anybody heal. It's not going to help anybody get forward. Then don't. And he doesn't. And normally I'm not a person who's like keep a secret. I'm a
Yeah.
person who works really well on information. If people are keeping secrets from me, it doesn't work that well. I have a lot of it'll just run in my head. I'm one of those people, I like to think myself to death.
Mhm.
So if I had the secret, I feel like I probably would have told everybody because I think everybody works better on information, which isn't true.
Well, I mean, I'm in a similar boat. I would have told everybody too, but it's also even just beyond that. I had a hard time with it watching the show just because I am so hardwired that no secret in the world of TV ever stays secret, and it's always going to come
Right?
out ever. And so I was just like, okay, just tell it now. Let's get this all out there now, because instead, what's going to happen is 15 minutes down the road in this episode, everything is going to come out and it's going to be so much worse. So let's just rip the band-aid off. But once again, with Earth Abides, I was wrong. Maybe that should just be the title for
This
this.
video,
Earth
I
Abides,
was wrong.
I was wrong. But this show's playing with my mind, and I think a way that's really interesting, where it is subverting all my expectations for what I see, what I expect out of TV. And while I wouldn't want every show to be like this, because I think at a certain point I want there to be even more craziness and drama and all that stuff. I like this show as sort of an occasional palate cleanser where it does just sort of like wash away some of my preconceived notions.
And while I would have been a person that probably would have told this secret because I can't hold on to things like that unless it's like really one of my friends or families like
Mhm.
keep this in the vault, it's in the vault forever. But for Corey, keeping this secret, it was the right thing to do. This was just going to destroy everybody. Ish would have held on to that forever, that he let this guy go
Yeah,
and Rafe is dead because of it, that it would have felt like this was all his fault, and it wasn't his fault. He
no.
made the right decision not letting him be part of that community, but it's all about choices, right?
Yeah,
You let him into the community. What would have happened to the community? He was going to be a weed in the
yeah.
community. You let him out of the community, he's going to be a weed out in the world.
Yeah, and it's just one of these sort of situations where you can play out a million different scenarios in your
Right,
head, but at the same time, other people have to also be responsible for their own actions and
right,
their own ability to change or not change. Because there's another universe here where Ish just decides, like, okay, you, because of what you did, just not doing anything in the past with Charlie, I'm gonna take you out. But then you've taken out
right.
two people, and then that is so much harder to carry around than just one. And then people start having preconceived notions about you, that you're just going to take everybody out. And so you give this person the capacity to maybe go out of the world and change, but at a certain point you can't help what they decide to do with that opportunity and how they decide to move forward.
Right. And they decided to go out and kill somebody,
Yeah,
which is, yeah, people can change, but was this guy ever going to change? I don't know. A man that's going to stand at a door like that and
yeah,
allow that to happen, that's some darkness in there. I mean, what Charlie did and the consequences of that all make sense. The consequences of what happened to this guy, if they had decided to kill him, I wouldn't have been upset about it. I would have been somebody at the table. It's like both of them need to go. I'm not sorry.
yeah. But this is what makes, I think, this show so interesting, is that I think a lot of people probably in their gut felt that way. Like, I would have felt that way if I was in this community too, just sort of wrestling to how to handle this. But I think they all are thinking a lot about, okay, how is this action going to look on us? What sort of community do we want to establish? And we can disagree with a lot of their choices along the way because of that. And it's a really deep and kind of nuanced finale in that way, where Ish never finds out about this, which is
No.
definitely the best for him, because
Yes.
he wants to make the right choice for
Yeah.
these people. He does believe that people can change. And I think he's trying his best to also shake off some of his own issues when it comes to not trusting people. Because, yeah, he was very right about Charlie and kind of definitely should not have trusted Charlie. But there's even this moment with him and Ezra, which I actually think is probably one of my favorite scenes of the entire finale, where he sort of goes to him and it's just like, I was really wrong about you. And they just shared this moment. And it was just like, you guys are bros now. This is actually kind of sweet. Like, I liked it.
I don't know why it took that long for them to get to there, honestly. I mean, they were having their problems at the beginning, but it took
Yeah.
years for Ish to get to that point. I mean, I don't know. It feels like Ezra had put in more than enough work at that point to show Ish that he's part of the community. He's there for him. He's there for all of them, that he's not Charlie or anything like Charlie. He's not a bad guy. Like, it felt pretty obvious years in the past that he wasn't a bad guy. I was surprised it took this long.
Ish is just pretty mad stubborn when he wants to be. I think he was just for so long. And I would even imagine even after Charlie, he's still gonna have his guard up about these other people, thinking, oh, I was right about Charlie. Maybe retroactively I could have been right about this person or that person. I'm glad he got there. Yeah, it did take a really long time to get there. And I think maybe some of this is a byproduct too of just not really seeing a lot of people in Ish. Yeah, he's got
Yep.
Jorge, doesn't really seem like he's got like a lot of real close male friendships and people he can sort of lean on in that way.
All right, let's talk about the loss of Joey because that really changed Ish significantly, as
Yeah.
it does when parents lose a child, especially that young, especially so close together in this type of a community, in this type of a situation where there aren't that many people left on Earth. For Ish, I mean, he was really in his grief, and that completely makes sense. And I know Emma was trying to like push him to get through his grief, to be like, listen, you got other kids, man. Like, you got to get through this in a way that you can get back to your other kids. And but she's already gone through this where he has not. This is his first time going through the loss of a child. She has lost children already due to what has happened. And for Ish, he's feeling even more responsible because he's like, did Charlie and everybody bring this in here? Like, were we gonna be okay before they came in here? And like, I got convinced into it and I let them in here, and now my son is dead. Like, he's just carrying so much guilt on this.
It's one of the most, I think, relatable situations that Earth Abides gives for a lot of people watching when you lose
Yes.
somebody or something really terrible happens to you and you just sort of replay all these different things in your head, including this idea of, could there have been anything I could have done that have either stopped this tragedy or stopped this
Yeah.
person from doing this really bad thing? But sometimes, and I think Ish eventually gets there and he reconciles this, but sometimes you just have to remember that fate works in these ways you can't control and that life causes horrible things to happen sometimes and people make choices that are outside of your control. And what happens here was devastating, and it was in my mind the moment I was watching this finale and being like, okay, this is the beginning of the end. This is where they've already lost Joey. Now somebody else is going to die and it's all going to start to slowly wither away. And so I was really going through it when I saw Ish just like taking apart the library, throwing all this stuff on the ground. It's just like, no, Earth abides. You guys gave me all this happiness, and you were about to just leave me in a fetal position on the floor.
And finally spray painting over that address. I
Yes.
don't know how that didn't happen right after what happened to Evie. That would have been it for me. I would have been down there with the spray can, been like, that is the end of
Yeah.
this at this point. This happened to somebody in our community. Because we have our address up here, we have to be a little bit smarter about it. Yes, we can trust people and have people come in, but it can't be because we just post our address for everyone out there. However,
Yep.
I'd be taking a wrong turn on that as well, because we see that Ish ends up finding his son's journal and
Yep.
is just like, yeah, I know my dad's not down for this, but I really want to build this radio and see if we can reach out to other people, something that his mom would do. And, can we find more people, build a bigger community? And it really turns things around for Ish to see it in his own son's writing.
And this is where the Earth abides roller coaster just continues for me because I'm feeling hope in this moment that, oh, look, he has a way to honor his son. This is great. He's moving forward. He's going to make this radio tower happen. Oh, there's these numbers that we saw out, and oh, this might be a frequency. But then when we get to the point where we actually hear the voice on the other side, I am now having like some severe Walking Dead level, just like fears that whoever's on this other line is going to come over, destroy the entire community, and that this is how everybody is going to die. And it's not how I thought previously.
I thought that was going to happen as well. I was really worried about it because I was just like, oh my goodness. I
Yeah.
know what the title of this show is and that it wasn't really supposed to be going in that way. I mean, Ish even says it when he's in class with the kids. He's like, yeah, we have to learn about the past, but so that we don't make those mistakes again, that we can move forward and learn from the earth and be one with the earth. Okay, that's all great. And that makes sense of where the show is going to be going. But I gotta tell you, when I heard that voice, she's like, oh, yeah, we have 77 people over here. We've settled by the ocean. We're fishing and farming and blah, blah, blah. Why don't you come over? I was like, who are you? Like, and I really like that
Yeah.
Ezra was the person who was just like, guys, we just had this situation, or not just, but we had this situation with Charlie and those visitors. And while some people in that group turned out okay, look at what happened to Evie. Like, not everyone can just be like, open doors, let's go. Everybody, why don't we meet them first, maybe, and see who they are before we open up the doors? And it's just like, nah. We're just all gonna come together as like, oh wow, that's really dangerous. And
Yeah.
here's my, I guess we'll call it a beef hat.
All right.
I love the idea that people are, if it was this type of situation, that people would come together and that most people in general, and I believe this, most people in general are good people. I think everybody's good, everybody's bad. I think that the Charlies of the world are smaller and few. So when you get to the end of the world and you've only got 100 people left, the chances that you're going to have a Charlie in there are maybe one or two or none. It is more likely that you're going to have people that want to survive, that want to grow, that want to thrive, that want to meet with other people, that want to build trust and want to build a community. That's more likely, yes. However, if I was in the community with Ish and everybody else, and Charlie came in our small community and did what they did to Evie, I think that they should all be on a little more high alert to be like, hey, cool, you guys have 77 people. Awesome. Why don't we meet somewhere neutral and let's just meet and talk and like get to know each other a little bit and see what it's all about and feel out the vibes before we're just like doors wide open. I just feel like an experience like that would make you earn trust instead of just be like, let's trust everybody.
Yeah, I'll admit, I had a kind of somewhat similar thought when I was watching it, where I was thinking, okay, I understand that you can't just move forward and never meet anybody. You have to try
Of
to trust
course.
people at some point. However, like going to their home or having all of them come to your home is a lot at once. Can you name like three delegates? Can you all just like go on a journey together like this is Survivor or something?
Right.
And you three, you go on a journey, you meet three people from their group,
Right.
you sit down, maybe you have a picnic together, kind of do some of this stuff like you're talking about and sort of feel them out. And if they are suddenly like, well, what? You guys don't trust us? Like, what's going on here? You just then explain to them what's happened to you, and it
Right.
just be like, we've just gone through a lot. It's no offense to you guys. It's just what we're dealing with and what we're working with. And if you guys want to kind of continue to be our buddies, you'll meet us on our terms. It's not personal.
I just feel like I understand where Ish was coming from after reading Joey's journal to be like, okay, I want to be more like my son and more open to
Yeah.
meeting other people. But that's it. Meeting other people, building relationships with other people, and then moving in together. It's like you've gone out on no dates with anybody. You've just met somebody online. You're
Yeah.
looking, for love, or you're looking for people. You meet somebody online. You've never actually spoken to them, or you've spoken to them for 5 seconds on the phone. And now you're like, let's move in together. Let's spend our lives together. It's like you need a minute to kind of get to know each other. You have a lifetime at this point, you guys are not that far away from each other. Have a middle ground where you guys do meet up weekly, daily, like really get to know each other and then move the communities together. That was the part I had the hardest time believing.
I think for me, that's sort of the largest problem I have with this whole show, which I do think has been fascinating, emotional, just this really,
Yes.
really satisfying experience. But it feels like the pace of this show is either moving around like a snail or moving really quickly where you do everything once. It's sort of just like, okay, everybody's coming together at these communities all at once. Episode 3, the start of it, magically there's all these people who are now there at the community. We never really saw anything leading up to that. It just feels like when things change in Earth Abides, they change really, really fast. I know this is a very short show, but I just wanted a little bit more time to sort of experience some of that so it doesn't feel like I am on this roller coaster, just kind of like being jerked around at various points.
I wish this show was 3 or 4 seasons instead of
Yeah.
having all these huge time jumps. The show ends at this, it's 50 years later sort of thing. And now it's like Ish is talking to like a grandson, basically. It's like, oh, you're going to be the future of the community kind of thing. It's just like, this show needed more time to breathe for me than just jumping around years each episode, where we could have really gotten involved in their lives more. So by the time we got to this point, it didn't feel like a complete turn of face for Ish, where he's been really worried about people and bringing people in. And
Mhm.
now this horrible thing has happened with Charlie. He's had to kill somebody. But reading a journal is now the thing, and losing his son, of course. But reading the journal all of a sudden just changes everything, instead of, maybe we're going to meet in the middle here, where we do it a little at a time. We get to know each other. Let's make sure we're not inviting in another Charlie that could hurt an Evie or anybody else. Hurt my wife,
Yeah.
hurt me, hurt my community. Make sure none of us are going to hurt them. Like let's make sure it's going to be okay.
Yeah, I think in summation, like Earth Abides is a lovely little show that could have ended up being more than what it was, where we just didn't have time to kind of get to know any of the supporting characters really at all, other than, Charlie being this horrible, horrible person. But we have these other people like Ezra, like Jorge, who could have been a lot more fleshed out over time. It's really just this sort of it's weird because it has a community, but it does still feel like it's this sort of isolated look at Ish, what he goes through, the people he connects with over time, and some decisions get rushed, just whether it's his psyche or the nature of this show, and other things just linger for a really long time.
Or more time with the survivors that came with Charlie, the Coreys of that group, that are just like, okay, we were traveling around with this Jared Leto leader for
Yeah.
a while, and we didn't really want to be there, but there was no one else to be with. To see how they actually came together in this community and made changes for the better.
Yeah.
See Corey really struggling with that secret. Is he gonna tell? Should he tell? Just those types of things. This show needed more episodes, or it needed more seasons.
I will probably give the most credit out of anyone at all for this show to MGM Plus, mostly because
Mhm.
if you're the producers and you try to sell this show to, I don't know, a Hulu, a Netflix, where you're basically just like, so for the first 2 episodes, there's not going to be much conflict at all. It's all going to move really, really slowly. I think a lot of other networks or streamers would have just been like, leave, get out.
Pass. Oh, for sure.
We don't want your show. It was so experimental in a way. I give
Mhm.
MGM a lot of credit for just giving it a shot. And I
Well,
think it's a show that a lot of people would really enjoy. I don't know if years down the line they're going to be thinking with Earth Abides front of mind, and that's okay. I think this is just a really small, fascinating little look into what a civilization can look like that's probably, I know this is weird to say, a little bit more realistic than some of the other post-apocalyptic thrillers out there. This is a lot more like the old computer games I used to play, like SimCity and Civilization, where I'm just like settling down and I'm just sort of thinking, do I build an aqueduct here? Where do I build the mayor's office? Like, how do I connect everything and make it function?
absolutely. I think that MGM does deserve a lot of credit for bringing this show onto the air, because we're in an era of TV where everything has to have move fast and break things energy. It
Yeah.
can't just take time to breathe and be a little slower paced. It's been really interesting to see the reaction to the show, where the first couple episodes were building a relationship or building by himself, and there was definitely a reaction from people to be like, nothing's happening, it's not moving fast enough for me. And I understand
Yeah.
that, because we are in this era of TV where if things are not moving at a crazy speed, then our attention is just not being held anymore.
No, I think the best thing I can say beyond everything else that I've already said is just that I think Earth Divides will age well. I do think this is
Yes.
one of those sort of shows where, generations down the line, people will recommend it, people will talk about it, just because I think its themes are pretty universal. It's 6 episodes,
Yep.
people can get through it. I just feel like there's something that is unique about it that will make it stand out enough, even if it's not going to be in anybody's top 5 list of the year. Probably, I think this is still a very good show with a good solid beginning, middle, and end that I enjoyed.
Yeah, I'm really happy to have had this show.
Well, that's what we got for Earth Abides, but thank you guys so much for watching, for hanging out with us. Hit that subscribe button, because as Jess said, we have a lot of other really, really great stuff. I know we're both like super, super psyched to get into Severance in particular.
Yeah.
And you can join our Patreon. We've got a link in the description there, where moving into the new year, we are
Hmm.
covering both The Pit and also Prime Target.
Yep.
Thank you so much to our patrons.
Thank you.
We'll see you here next time.